Marcus Chun had always been good with his hands. Back on Earth, he'd fixed everything from ancient combustion engines to quantum processors. Now, stranded on Kepler 442b after his cargo freighter's hyperdrive failed, those same hands were keeping him alive in ways he never imagined. The repair bay of the abandoned research station buzzed with the soft hum of atmospheric processors. Marcus wiped sweat from his forehead as he worked on the damaged power coupling that would either restore life support or leave him breathing recycled air for maybe another week. The station had been empty for 3 years, according to the logs, abandoned when the hegemony pulled funding from Outer Rim research projects. That's when she appeared. Marcus heard the footsteps first, too light to be human, with an odd rhythm that suggested a different gait entirely. He grabbed the plasma torch from his tool belt and spun around, ready to defend himself against whatever scavenger or predator had found its way into the station. What he saw made him lower the torch immediately. She stood in the doorway, nearly 7 feet tall, with crystalline blue skin that seemed to shimmer in the station's dim lighting. Her body was humanoid, but clearly alien, elongated limbs, joints that bent at slightly wrong angles, and for fingers on each hand that ended in what looked like natural tools rather than nails. Most striking were her eyes, completely silver, like liquid mercury, reflecting his own surprised face back at him. But it was her armor that made Marcus's engineer brain kick into overdrive. The chest piece was clearly damaged, with deep gouges running across the left side where some kind of energy weapon had nearly punched through. Sparks occasionally flickered from exposed circuitry, and he could see that whatever powered the suit was failing. "Human," she said, her voice carrying harmonics that suggested vocal cords designed for a different atmosphere. "You repair things." It wasn't a question. Marcus realized she'd been watching him work, studying his movements. He nodded slowly, still processing the fact that he wasn't alone anymore. "I am Zara Khan of the Void Seekers," she continued, each word carefully pronounced as if she was translating from her own language in real time. "My ship was destroyed. My armor sustains life, but damage grows worse." Marcus looked at the sparking chest piece again. If that was life support, she was in serious trouble. The technology was completely alien to him, but the principles of energy distribution and protection systems were universal. At least, he hoped they were. "I could try," he said finally, "but I'll need to examine it closely, and you'll need to remove it." Something flickered across her silver eyes. Was that amusement? Human males of your species experience arousal when viewing unclothed females, correct? Marcus felt his face burn red. "I'm a professional. I just need access to the damaged systems." "Professional," she repeated, as if testing a word. "Yes, I have observed your work. Your species has interesting approaches to problem solving." She moved into the repair bay with fluid grace, despite her size. As she got closer, Marcus could see that the armor wasn't just damaged, it was actively failing. Warning symbols that he didn't recognize, but somehow understood, were flashing across small displays embedded in the chest piece. "How long do you have?" he asked. "Perhaps 6 of your day's cycles, if I minimize movement and metabolic functions." 6 days. Marcus had worked under pressure before, but never with someone's life hanging in the balance. And certainly never with someone from another species entirely. "Okay," he said, rolling up his sleeves. "Let's see what we're dealing with." Zara Khan began unsealing her armor with movements that suggested this wasn't the first time it had needed emergency repairs. As the chest piece came free, Marcus got his first look at the internal systems that kept her alive. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Crystalline conduits carried what looked like liquid light through pathways that seemed to grow rather than be manufactured. Biomechanical interfaces merged organic and technological components so seamlessly that Marcus couldn't tell where one ended and the other began. "Your people," Zara Khan said as she carefully set the chest piece on his workbench. "They solve problems differently than other species the hegemony has encountered." "How so?" Marcus asked, already reaching for his diagnostic tools. "They break things down to understand them. Most species attempt to work within existing parameters. Her silver eyes studied his face. Humans, they changed the parameters entirely. Marcus smiled grimly as he began his examination of the alien technology. Well, let's hope that's enough to keep you breathing. 3 hours into the repair process, Marcus was beginning to understand just how far beyond human technology Zarkon's armor really was. The damage hadn't just severed connections. It had disrupted what appeared to be a living network of energy pathways that adapted and rerouted themselves based on need. "This is incredible," he murmured, using a modified scanner to trace the flow of energy through the crystalline conduits. "It's like the armor thinks for itself." "In a way, it does," Zarkon replied. She sat on a supply crate nearby, wrapped in a thermal blanket Marcus had found in the station's emergency supplies. Without her armor, she looked more vulnerable, but also more alien. Her skin actually was crystalline, not just colored like crystal, but with the same internal structure that caught and refracted light. The armor bonds with its wearer's bioelectrical field. It learns, adapts, grows stronger over time. "But that's the problem," Marcus said, setting down his tools and turning to face her. "I can fix the physical damage, replace the burned-out components, even jury-rig some of these connections. But I can't restore the bioelectrical pathways. I don't understand how your physiology interfaces with the technology." Zarakon was quiet for a long moment, her mercury eyes reflecting the light from his work lamps. "There is a way," she said finally. "But it requires trust." "What kind of trust?" "The armor must learn a new pattern. If it cannot restore its connection to me fully, it must establish a temporary connection to another bioelectrical field while I guide the repair process from within." Marcus felt his stomach drop as he realized what she was suggesting. "You want me to wear part of your life support system?" "Only temporarily, and only while making the repairs. The armor would read your bioelectrical patterns, use them as a bridge to maintain its learning protocols while I work from inside to rebuild the damaged pathways." "That sounds incredibly dangerous." "For both of us." "Yes," she said simply, "but less dangerous than me dying while you attempt repairs you cannot properly complete." Marcus looked back at the damaged chest piece. The warning lights were flashing faster now, and he could hear a subtle change in the humming that suggested the power systems were degrading more quickly than Zarakon had estimated. "What exactly would happen to me?" he asked. "The armor would attempt to interface with your nervous system. Humans and my people, the Zephyrians, have surprisingly compatible bioelectrical patterns, according to hegemony medical databases. But the experience would be intense." "Intense how?" Zarakon considered her words carefully. "You would feel what the armor feels. Experience its sensory data, its awareness of structural integrity, power flow, threat assessment. For a brief time, you would be connected not just to the technology, but to me." Marcus set his tools down completely and walked over to the small window that looked out onto Kepler, 442b's rust-colored surface. 2 suns hung low on the horizon, painting the alien landscape in shades of amber and gold. He'd come so far from Earth, seen things that would have been pure fantasy just a few generations ago. And now he was being asked to literally connect his mind to alien technology and an alien being. "How do you know I'm compatible?" he asked. "I have been monitoring your bioelectrical field since I arrived," Zarakon admitted. "Your patterns are unusually stable for a human. Most of your species generate significant electromagnetic interference from emotional responses. You maintain focus even under stress. You've been reading my brain patterns without asking? I was determining if you posed a threat." Her tone held no apology. "Now I am determining if you could provide assistance." Marcus turned back to look at her. Even wrapped in a simple thermal blanket, sitting on a supply crate in an abandoned research station, she carried herself with a dignity that spoke of someone accustomed to command. Her silver eyes met his directly, unflinchingly. "If this goes wrong," he said, "we could both die. If we do nothing, I will certainly die. And you will remain stranded here until your supplies run out." That was another thing Marcus had been trying not to think about. His freighter was completely dead. The hyperdrive failure had cascaded through multiple systems. Without power from the research station, he had maybe 2 weeks of life support left in his ship. "There's something you're not telling me," he said. "Why were you really here? This system is way off any trade routes." Zarakon's expression shifted slightly. "I was tracking a hegemony weapons shipment that disappeared 3 months ago. Energy weapons designed specifically to be effective against human defensive technologies. Someone's planning to attack human colonies? The Hegemony Council believes humanity's rapid expansion poses a threat to established order. There are factions that would prefer to solve the human problem before it becomes unmanageable." Marcus felt a chill that had nothing to do with the station's temperature control. "And you're trying to stop them?" "I'm trying to understand them. The Void Seekers serve as independent contractors for the Hegemony, but we have our own codes of honor. Genocide is not among our accepted practices." The stakes had just gotten significantly higher. Marcus looked at the armor again, then back at Zarakon. "What I need to do?" he asked. For the first time since she'd arrived, Zarakon smiled. It transformed her face completely, making her seem less alien and more familiar somehow. "First," she said, standing and letting the thermal blanket fall away, "you help me back in my armor. Then we learn whether humans and Zephyrians are as compatible as the medical data suggests." Marcus had helped Zarakon back into her damaged armor with the careful precision of someone handling explosives. Every connection had to be perfect, every seal properly aligned, because once the bioelectrical interface began, there would be no room for error. Now he stood behind her, his hands positioned on the external interface ports that would connect him to the armor's neural network. The ports themselves looked almost organic, smooth depressions in the crystalline surface that seemed to warm under his touch. "Remember," Zarakon said, her voice slightly distorted by the armor's failing communication systems, "do not fight the connection. Allow the armor to read your patterns, but do not try to control it. I will guide the repair process from within. And if something goes wrong, then we will face that problem together." Marcus took a deep breath and pressed his palms against the interface ports. The connection was instantaneous and overwhelming. Suddenly, he could feel the armor as if it were his own skin. Every damaged circuit registered as physical pain, every failing power conduit like a wound that wouldn't heal. But beneath that was something else, Zarakon's presence, her consciousness intertwined with the armor's artificial intelligence in ways that defied description. Steady, her voice came not through his ears but directly into his mind. "You are doing well. Now, can you sense the damaged pathways?" Marcus could. They appeared in his awareness like broken blood vessels, dark lines interrupting the flow of energy that should have been as natural as breathing. Through the armor's enhanced senses, he could perceive electromagnetic fields, structural stresses, even the quantum-level interactions between the biomechanical components. "I see them," he thought back to her. "But how do I fix what I can't physically touch?" "The armor will guide your hands. Trust it." Marcus felt his body moving without conscious direction, his hands finding tools and components with impossible precision. The armor was using his motor functions, guided by Zarakon's will and its own programming, to perform repairs that no human should have been able to accomplish. But that wasn't the strangest part. The strangest part was that he could feel Zarakon's memories bleeding through the connection. Flashes of other worlds, other skies, battles fought in the darkness between stars. He saw her ship's destruction, a surprise attack by vessels using those same energy weapons she'd been tracking. He felt her determination to complete her mission even as her life support failed. And he felt something else, something she was trying to hide. "You're not just tracking those weapons," he realized. "You know who has them." Her mental presence recoiled slightly. "Focus on the repairs." Zarakon. He pushed the thought toward her with all the intensity he could manage. "Who has the weapons?" Through the connection, he felt her resignation. "My own people. A faction of void seekers led by my clutch sister, Veracane. She believes humanity's expansion threatens the natural order of the galaxy." Marcus's hands continued working on the armor repairs, but his mind reeled. "Your sister is planning to attack human colonies?" She has already begun. 3 outer rim settlements have been destroyed. The attacks were blamed on raiders, but I recognized the weapon signatures. The pieces fell into place with horrible clarity. That's why you're really out here alone. You're not investigating for the hegemony. You're hunting your own sister. She was everything I aspire to be. Zarakan's mental voice carried deep pain. Stronger, faster, more skilled in combat. When she was chosen to lead an independent Voidseeker cell, I thought she would bring honor to our lineage. Marcus could feel the repairs progressing as they talked. The armor's bioelectrical pathways were slowly rebuilding themselves, using his human neural patterns as a template to bridge the gaps in Zarakan's Zephyrian physiology. It was working, but the process was exhausting for both of them. "Why are you telling me this?" he asked. "Because once the armor is repaired, I will leave this place. I will hunt Veracane across the galaxy if necessary, and I will stop her before she can destroy any more human settlements. But I cannot do this alone." "What are you asking?" "I'm asking nothing. I'm offering a choice." Her presence in his mind became more focused, more intense. "Your species fascinates me, Marcus-Chen. In the 3 hours since we began this procedure, you have adapted to technology that most species would find impossible to understand. You have trusted me with your life, and allowed me to share memories that reveal my deepest failures." Through the armor's sensors, Marcus could perceive Zarakan's actual body inside the suit. Her biosigns were stronger now, the repairs allowing her natural healing processes to resume. But he could also sense her emotional state, a mixture of determination, guilt, and something that might have been loneliness. "Humans solve problems by breaking them down and rebuilding them," she continued. "But you also do something else. You form bonds with other species that transcend mere alliance. You adapt not just your technology, but your thinking, your very nature, to work with beings completely unlike yourselves." And Marcus prompted, though he thought he knew where this was leading. "And I have spent my life believing that strength came from isolation, from perfect self-reliance. But watching you work, feeling your mind adapt to my armor's needs, I begin to understand why the hegemony fears humanity." The repairs were nearly complete now. Marcus could feel the armor systems coming back online, its artificial intelligence resuming full function. Soon the bioelectrical bridge between him and Zarakan would no longer be necessary. "When this connection ends," she said, "I will offer you a choice. You can remain here while I restore power to your freighter and help you return to human space. Or you can come with me." "Come with you where?" "To hunt the most dangerous Voidseeker in the galaxy. To prevent a war between our species. To see what 2 people from different worlds can accomplish when they truly work together." Marcus felt the last of the damaged pathways reconnect. The armor systems hummed with renewed power, and Zarakan's life signs stabilized completely. The bioelectrical bridge began to fade, but not before he caught one last flash of her true feelings. She was terrified, not of the hunt ahead, but of being alone again. The connection severed, and Marcus stumbled backward, his own nervous system reasserting control over his body. Zarakan turned to face him, her silver eyes now glowing with the armor's restored power. "The repairs are complete," she said aloud. "Your techniques were extraordinary." Marcus leaned against the workbench, still processing everything he'd experienced through their shared connection. "So what happens now?" Zarakan moved through the research station with renewed purpose, her repaired armor responding to her movements with fluid precision. Marcus followed, still feeling echoes of their shared connection in the back of his mind. The experience had changed something fundamental about how he perceived the universe and his place in it. "Your freighter," she said as they entered the station's hangar bay, where his damaged ship sat next to what Marcus now realized was the wreckage of her own vessel. The hyperdrive failure was not accidental. Marcus stopped walking. "What do you mean?" "While we were connected, the armor analyzed the electromagnetic signatures in this system. There are traces of a directed energy weapon discharge consistent with a hyperdrive disruption torpedo." "Someone shot me down?" Someone wanted you stranded here. The question is why. Zara Khan approached his freighter and placed her armored hand against its hull. The armor can interface with most technological systems, not just Zephyrian ones. With your permission, I would like to examine your ship's logs. Marcus nodded, still processing the implications. If a stranding wasn't an accident, then someone had wanted him specifically in this location. But who even knew he was traveling this route? There, Zara Khan said after a moment of connection with his ship's systems. 3 days ago, you received a priority shipping contract for medical supplies to the Kepler 442 system. The contract was issued by Hegemony Medical Services, but the authorization codes are falsified. Someone lured me here deliberately. Yes, but not to strand you. Her silver eyes met his. To bring you to me. The implications hit Marcus like a physical blow. Your sister knew you'd come here. She knew you were tracking the weapons shipments, and she wanted you to find a human. Vera Kane always was a strategic thinker, but I do not believe she expected us to successfully interface our technologies. Zara Khan moved to examine her own ship's wreckage. Her attack was meant to cripple my armor beyond repair, forcing me to rely on primitive human technology. She wanted me to experience firsthand what she sees as humanity's inadequacy. Except it backfired. Spectacularly. For the first time since the repairs, Zara Khan smiled. Not only did you prove capable of understanding Zephyrian technology, you improved it. The bioelectrical pathways in my armor are now more efficient than their original configuration. Marcus walked over to examine her ship's remains more closely. The vessel had been sleek and beautiful, all flowing curves and crystalline components that seemed to grow rather than be manufactured. Now, it was a twisted wreck, but something caught his eye among the debris. This energy weapon signature, he said, pointing to the distinctive melting patterns in the hull. I've seen this before. Where? In the research station's logs. 3 years ago, when the Hegemony pulled funding, there was an incident. A research team was working on adaptive defense systems, armor that could learn and counter new weapon types. The project was shut down after a weapons test went wrong. Zara Khan joined him beside the wreckage. What kind of weapons test? According to the logs, they were testing human defensive technology against captured Hegemony weapons. The test subjects were volunteers from various species, including Zephyrians. Marcus felt pieces of a larger puzzle clicking into place. What if the research wasn't really shut down? What if it was moved off the books? You think Vera Kane has been working with rogue Hegemony researchers? I think your sister found a way to combine human adaptability with Zephyrian technology. And I think that's what she's been using to destroy human colonies. The sound of approaching engines interrupted their conversation. Through the hangar bay's atmospheric barrier, Marcus could see 3 ships dropping out of hyperspace, sleek vessels that matched the design of Zara Khan's destroyed craft. Void Seekers, she said, her armor systems immediately shifting into combat mode. Vera Kane has found us. Can we fight them? Not with a damaged freighter, and no ship of my own. Zara Khan's armor began to emit a low harmonic hum as its weapons systems came online. But perhaps we do not need to fight them. Marcus watched the approaching ships with growing dread. What are you thinking? I am thinking that my sister wanted to demonstrate human inadequacy, but instead witnessed human adaptation. She will want to study what we accomplished, to understand how you were able to interface with my armor. So we surrender? We let ourselves be captured. Once aboard her ship, we can learn the location of the research facility and the extent of her weapons stockpile. The plan was insane, but Marcus could see the logic in it. They were outnumbered and outgunned, but they had something Vera Kane didn't expect, a human who could interface with Zephyrian technology. The lead ship settled into the hangar bay with graceful precision. Its hull opened like a blooming flower, revealing an interior that pulsed with bioluminescent light. 3 figures emerged, their armor similar to Zara Khan's, but darker, more aggressive in design. The center figure removed her helmet, revealing features that were unmistakably related to Zara Khan. The same crystalline skin, the same silver eyes, but with an expression of cold calculation that made Marcus's skin crawl. "Sister," Veracane said, her voice carrying harmonics that suggested barely controlled violence. "You have exceeded my expectations." Veracane. Zara Khan made no move to draw her weapons, but Marcus could sense the tension in her posture. "You orchestrated all of this." "I orchestrated a lesson. Humanity's expansion threatens the natural order of the galaxy. They consume resources, establish colonies without regard for existing ecosystems, and their chaotic thinking patterns disrupt carefully maintained balances." Veracane's gaze shifted to Marcus. "But you little human have proven more interesting than anticipated." "How so?" Marcus asked, surprised by the steadiness of his own voice. "You successfully interfaced with Zephyrian biotechnology. No other species has accomplished this, despite decades of hegemony research." She stepped closer, her silver eyes studying him with scientific interest. "I am curious to understand the mechanism. Are you curious enough to stop murdering innocent people?" Veracane's laugh was like breaking crystal. "Innocent? Your species has established 37 new colonies in the past 5 years, displacing or destroying ecosystems that took millennia to develop. You terraform worlds without thought for the consequences, strip mine asteroid belts that serve as nurseries for spatial life forms, and spread through the galaxy like a virus. And your solution is genocide? My solution is controlled reduction, a demonstration of vulnerability that will encourage humanity to limit its expansion to sustainable levels." Her expression hardened. "But my plans have been complicated by this unexpected development." Marcus felt Zara Khan tense beside him. Whatever her sister was planning involved both of them. "You will both come with me," Veracane announced. "There are experiments to be conducted, data to be gathered. The research facility will find your collaboration most illuminating." As her guards moved to escort them toward her ship, Marcus caught Zara Khan's eye. She nodded almost imperceptibly. The plan was still in motion. They would let themselves be captured, learn what they could, and hopefully find a way to stop Veracane's war before it could truly begin. But as they walked toward the alien vessel, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into something far more dangerous than either of them had anticipated. The research facility hung in the void between stars, a massive construct that looked more grown than built. Organic curves flowed seamlessly into technological surfaces, creating a structure that seemed alive in the darkness. Marcus pressed against the viewport of their holding cell as Veracane's ship approached, trying to comprehend the scale of what he was seeing. "It is impressive," Zara Khan said quietly. "And terrible." They had been given adjacent cells aboard the Void Seeker vessel, separated by an energy barrier that prevented physical contact, but allowed conversation. During the 3-day journey, Marcus had learned more about Zephyrian culture, the hegemony's political structure, and the growing tension surrounding human expansion. "How long has your sister been planning this?" he asked. "Years, perhaps decades." Veracane has always believed in long-term solutions. Zara Khan's armor had been placed in minimal power mode during their captivity, but Marcus could still see the soft glow of its systems through her cell wall. But she has never had access to resources like this before. The facility grew larger as they approached, revealing details that made Marcus's engineers mind reel. Entire sections seemed to be dedicated to ship construction, while others pulsed with energy signatures that suggested massive weapon systems. Most disturbing were the areas that looked like biological research centers, their surfaces covered in the same crystalline growth patterns as Zephyrian armor. "She's not just building weapons," Marcus realized. "She's creating hybrid technology. Human adaptability combined with Zephyrian biointegration and hegemony resources," Zara Khan confirmed. "The perfect tool for controlled destruction." Their ship docked with a section of the facility that had obviously been designed for prisoner processing. Guards in dark armor escorted them through corridors that seemed to shift and adapt as they walked, walls flowing like liquid to accommodate the group's movement. The central laboratory was a vast chamber filled with technological wonders that hurt to look at directly. Energy patterns flowed through crystalline conduits that stretched between floating work platforms, while biomechanical computers processed data streams that appeared as living light. In the center of it all stood Vera Kane, no longer in her armor, but wearing a flowing robe that seemed to be made of the same material as the facility's walls. "Welcome to the future," she said as they were brought before her. "Here, we have solved the fundamental problem of galactic civilization, the chaos of individual species developing in isolation, creating conflicting technologies and incompatible worldviews. You've created a prison," Marcus countered. "I have created unity. Observe." Vera Kane gestured toward a series of containment fields where figures in various types of armor stood motionless. Representatives from 12 species, all successfully integrated with hybrid biotechnology. Their individual chaos has been replaced with collective purpose. Marcus felt his blood run cold as he realized what he was looking at. The figures weren't wearing armor. The technology had been grafted directly onto their bodies, turning them into living weapons completely under Vera Kane's control. "You're turning people into machines. I am elevating them beyond the limitations of their biological origins." Vera Kane approached one of the containment fields, where a figure that had once been human stood motionless. This volunteer from Earth has been enhanced with Zephyrian biointegration technology and hegemony neural networks. He is faster, stronger, and more intelligent than any baseline human, and completely under your control. Control is necessary for unity. Individual desires lead to conflict, chaos, destruction. Her silver eyes fixed on Marcus. "But you present an interesting problem. Your successful interface with my sister's armor suggests a level of compatibility we had not achieved through forced integration." Marcus felt Zarakhan tense beside him. This was what they had feared, that Vera Kane would want to study their connection, to understand how they had achieved voluntary cooperation between human and Zephyrian technology. "I will not allow you to experiment on him," Zarakhan said, her voice carrying harmonics of challenge that Marcus had learned meant she was preparing for combat. "You mistake my intentions, sister. I do not wish to experiment on the human." Vera Kane smiled, an expression that held no warmth. "I wish to offer him a choice." "What kind of choice?" "Join us voluntarily. Allow me to study your interface techniques. Help me perfect the integration process. In exchange, I will spare the remaining human colonies." The offer hung in the air like a blade. Marcus could see the trap. Vera Kane knew that his cooperation would give her the key to perfecting her hybrid soldiers. But she also knew that refusing would mean the destruction of millions of innocent people. "And if I refuse, then I will proceed with my original plan. Systematic reduction of human expansion through targeted destruction of new colonies. The process will be messier than I prefer, but ultimately effective." Marcus looked around the laboratory, taking in the full scope of what Vera Kane had built. Dozens of hybrid soldiers, weapons that could punch through any known defensive technology, and resources that suggested backing from the highest levels of the hegemony. Even if he and Zarakhan could escape, could they possibly stop all of this? But then he noticed something that gave him hope. The facility's biomechanical systems weren't just Zephyrian technology scaled up. They incorporated design principles he recognized from his own work. Human problem-solving approaches, adapted and integrated into the alien technology. Vera Kane had been studying human methods long before she encountered him. "You've already been using human techniques," he said. "The adaptive systems, the way this facility reconfigures itself. That's human engineering integrated with Zephyrian biotechnology." "Indeed, your species' chaotic approach to problem-solving has proven useful in certain applications. Then, you already know why this won't work." Vera Kane's expression sharpened. "Explain." "Human chaos isn't a bug, it's a feature. You can't eliminate individual desire and creativity without destroying the very thing that makes the technology work." Marcus gestured toward the motionless hybrid soldiers. "Those aren't enhanced beings. They're lobotomized slaves. The moment you remove individual will, you lose the adaptability that makes human techniques valuable. Fascinating theory. Shall we test it? Before Marcus could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the facility. Emergency lighting bathed the laboratory in crimson, and Vericane's expression shifted from smug confidence to genuine concern. "What is the nature of the emergency?" she demanded of her guards. "Unknown ships dropping out of hyperspace," one replied. "Configurations suggest hegemony enforcement vessels." Marcus felt Zarakon move beside him and realized she was smiling. "You contacted the Hegemony Council," he said. "I transmitted a full report of Vericane's activities before we were captured," she confirmed, "including evidence of her genocide against human colonies and her theft of Hegemony research facilities." "Clever sister," Vericane said, but her tone held more admiration than anger. "But ultimately futile. This facility has defensive capabilities that exceed anything in the Hegemony fleet." "Maybe," Zarakon replied, "but it doesn't have defenses against what the humans call a Trojan horse." Marcus understood immediately. During their bioelectrical connection, he hadn't just helped repair her armor. He had inadvertently uploaded human problem-solving algorithms into its systems. And those algorithms had been transmitted to the facility's biomechanical network when Vericane's people analyzed them. "The facility's adaptive systems," he said. "They're not just using human techniques. They're running human code. Code that values individual choice and creative chaos above all else." As if responding to his words, the laboratory's biomechanical systems began to pulse with new patterns of light. The containment fields holding the hybrid soldiers flickered and failed, and the motionless figures began to stir as their suppressed personalities reasserted themselves. "Impossible, Veracane breed." "No," Marcus said, reaching out to take Zarakon's hand as her armor's power systems came back online. "Just human." The facility shook as the Hegemony enforcement vessels began their assault, but Marcus wasn't worried about the battle outside. The real victory was happening right here, as individual will and chaotic creativity spread through Vericane's perfect system like a virus, or like freedom itself. In the end, it wasn't superior firepower or advanced technology that stopped the threat to human expansion. It was the simple, chaotic, beautiful human ability to adapt, to choose, and to find unexpected solutions to impossible problems. And as Marcus and Zarakon fought their way through a facility that was literally coming alive around them, he realized that maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something even more extraordinary than either of their species had imagined possible.